Hello? Hello?
Hi there, it's me, Bonnie Bunny.
Oh, hey, Bonnie. I don't mean to bother you, but I really need someone to talk about this retrospective. See, it's been like 10 years or so since we had since y'all did the musical, and I really think it would be good for the business if we got something out there that people could listen to.
Oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. I mean, people still watch the video, right?
Last I checked, I mean, it's part of a big franchise, sort of.
Sort of? I've never heard of it before. Is it cool? Do people draw artwork of it?
Oh yeah, I like it. I mean, you're wearing a shirt that has Foxy on it.
It's much too big for me. Hi, David. Hi, Kaela.
Hi.
Hi.
I know, just imagining like staying up late and then suddenly like, ooh, let's do phone prank calls and then calling random places. Audio voice. Is your refrigerator ready?
But David, serious question. Have you ever thought about when somebody answers the phone going, hello? Hello? Hello?
Depends on who it is, of course.
How long you can keep that going. Hello?
It's funny to think about is like, I would be like,
Oh my god, that could be your ring, like
your
like
when people, my voicemail. Hello? Hello? Yeah, that could be something.
Oh, hi. Sorry, you must have missed me. This is...
Hi, my name is Afton.
This is where I just start calling you
William
and leaving
Afton?
messages just so I can hear that.
Yeah. If you need to reach me, or maybe it's Matt Pat or Scott Cawthon,
An evil dirtbag with
a chainsaw.
I go by many names.
Well, yeah. So it's thank you all for having us around. I know there was already kind of introductions here, but I am here. Kaela is here.
Hello.
And of course we have AJ.
Hi there, it's me,
I'm AJ. I'm AJ.
And we have Gwen.
Hello.
And it's wonderful to all be reunited once again because we came together. Initially, we kind of planned to come together for this. And then there was a shift of plans. And I thought, hey, this would be an opportunity to talk about it. We're coming up on almost the 10th anniversary of the release of the first night of the Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, I feel so old.
Musical. I mean,
when was it released? Or the first?
June 26th, I believe, was night 1 of 2015.
Wow.
So that is almost 10 years ago now. And technically there was a second night that Markiplier uploaded onto his channel on the 27th, I believe. So we had like one day apart, which is a really funny strategy. We didn't drop them at the same time.
You actually did have the first two nights in a row, which is crazy to think about. And then it took a little bit. The third night didn't hit until...
Yeah, well, originally it was just night 1 and night 2.
Yeah.
I'm sure that when we talked to you about voicing both Phone Guy and Foxy, we didn't tell you, we're going to do 5 nights.
I didn't realize we were going to do... Yeah,
it was like, 2 nights is fine.
Well, I guess that's one of my first questions is like, we didn't know it was going to be necessarily all 5 nights until later.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, not at all. In fact, I'm going to be curious how many of us were predicting once, we got wind that we were making this. How many of us believed that it was going to be 1 and done or 2 and done and not realizing that here it is 10 years later and we're still kind of doing the voices on, podcasts, and we just did a movie together last year.
Do you want me to be the journalist in this and the moderator, interviewer person? Since my involvement with this was very minor, I was just there for one night to puppeteer.
Completely behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, completely. Never...
You were there for the last night of the shoot, right?
What? Or last? No. The first night.
Yeah, because I was there night 5. I don't think you were
no, you're right. I'm getting my... This is why I'm glad you're here, because I want to make sure we don't get the
details.
Timeline. Yeah, feel free to pose some questions. I'll also be... We can all be posing questions to each other here, because I'd like to know where we all feel.
My experience has come.
Thank you, Kaela.
Well, this is what I did when I used to do the artistry for podcasting. I just interviewed... because I used to interview people.
Right. And that podcast, by the way, is still archived on the Benview Network if you'd like to hear the artistry.
Yeah, that was when I interviewed just a whole bunch of people. That was a while ago. And I feel like I also did not edit it that much. It's awful.
It's not awful.
Way to sell it.
Well,
now I'm definitely looking at it.
I want to defend the artistry here for a second. What I genuinely appreciate about the artistry is that it is a genuine attempt to speak to people who are in different professions, usually artistic, creative professions, about what they did to get to that place. And it's also supposed to be there as a tool for people who want to be in those professions to see like how other people got there, maybe some of the means themselves. And you did get some amazing people on that show, and everybody you talk to is clearly passionate about what they do. And you pose some really phenomenal questions, and I do actually go back and listen to it sometimes to hear what people have to say, because it's fun. It's fascinating. It's like a time capsule too about that part of our lives as well. You even interviewed me for the show, which is really fascinating.
It was. I think it's also a bit dated now because like so much has changed in the field and all that since then. Again, this has been 10. Okay, I'm going to move it back to Five Nights at Freddy's because this was 10 years ago. Jeez. First of all, AJ, why? What made you decide to do that? I mean, besides the popularity, of course, but
I mean, the popularity is a huge. You can't understate how. Like, we were all there. We saw it blowing up.
Yeah,
and as it is, the musical actually, I feel like came out almost a year after the first game dropped.
Right, the first game dropped in 2014. And I remember it because at the time we saw it blowing up, and I think I even in conversations that we had, I've been like, you should keep this on your radar.
Yeah.
If you're not already. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
It definitely,
I didn't know it was going to be as huge as it did and become the monolith that it's become. But
it definitely hit me when I first saw it because so the reason I had the history of Chuck E. Cheese, but also you might know this about me, but maybe not. When I was a kid, had a humongous fear of costume characters, and I'm still slightly uncomfortable. I could still go up to them, but it's like, if I can avoid it, I will.
Right.
And this probably led to my fear of haunts as well. But as a kid, no, get them away from me. Any, like, big and those things are huge, if you remember at Chuck E. Cheese. The animatronics there were huge.
Oh, they were.
And any costume characters, like, nope, cries, get away from me. This is not, dislike.
Yeah.
No. Disneyland? Nope.
Yeah. No, I had the same thing. I was afraid of Chuck E. Cheese. I was like, I don't know who's in that. I don't even know if it's a human in that.
And the fact that someone decided, I'm going to tap into a fear that I didn't think anybody would consider. But, it was a very simple game. Five Nights at Freddy's is a very simple game. In terms of the original, sorry, not the...
10 years will change. 10 years will change a whole franchise. It's intense.
Did you play the game before you decided to?
I'm trying to remember how much exposure we had to the game. I want to say that I saw it getting a rise in popularity, especially from Let's Players. I don't remember when Matt's first theory was produced about it. I'm sure by that point he was starting to do content about it. But I do remember texting Mark one morning, just waking up, and really like intrusive thought, impulse kind of, just texting him and going, hey, Mark, would you like to do a Five Nights at Freddy's musical together? And this was probably like the third time, we'd already done a few other things together.
Oh, that's right. Before that, you worked on...
we had done, I want to say 3 of them. We'd done My Date with Captain Falcon.
Right.
And then we had worked together on Resident Enos. That was still 2014. And then we'd also just done How to Beat a Monkey at Chess together. So I think it was off the heels of that where I reached out to him and was like, hey, since we just beat a monkey at chess, you want to celebrate by doing a Five Nights at Freddy's musical together? And it was just a very immediate, like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Right.
No strings attached. Definitely want to make that.
Right.
And so that, I think, is really, the ball started rolling, especially there. If Mark had said, like, nah, I pass, I don't know what we would have done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's hard to say whether we would have continued the ball rolling or if it would have just died right there.
I mean, let's be fair to say Mark's kind of a bunch of Mark's career is kind of intrinsically tied with Five Nights at Freddy's.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much that, a lot of people's first exposure to Five Nights at Freddy's was because he played it and exposed people to it. And I was talking about this a little bit with everyone earlier, but I was like, how many people do you think were actually playing Five Nights at Freddy's or consistently played Five Nights at Freddy's, but if they didn't, there's probably more people who watched other people play it who are fans than maybe even people who played it, even though it was very popular and got a lot of attention. So,
and not just, I mean, you didn't just get Mark, you got quite a cast. You got Xander Mobus, who was the voice was just hot off the heels of playing the announcer for Super Smash Bros.
Yeah.
To voice Freddy, and then Sarah Williams, who's done a ton of voices.
Yeah, I feel like she was wrapping up Kill la Kill maybe at that point, or was still doing. I don't remember.
Did you just reach out to them? Or like, hey, yeah, would you like, or made you consider getting them? Or
Xander we had just been working with Xander for Medics Don't Heal Scouts, I think. So yeah, really funny. But we had somehow been in touch with Xander, and he had come all the way up to Lancaster to play the spy at the end of Medics Don't Heal Scouts.
I didn't know he was in that. I need to rewatch
at the
that.
very, very end.
Yeah.
It's like a blink and you miss it kind of thing, but it's so key.
Yeah, so he's physically on set in that Random Encounter song playing that character. Which is also why we haven't seen a spy TF2 musical from Random Encounters, because you have to get Xander back for that. That's a lot of work. Sarah, I don't remember how we first got in touch with Sarah, but I do remember Peter and I sitting at lunch with her after work one day, because we still had jobs at that point. And Sarah came out to meet us for the first time and just kind of get to know each other. And, we knew she was a voice actress and she knew that we did video game musicals, but she also knew that we were working with Markiplier. And she really wanted a chance to do a project with Mark. So she was like, hey, if you ever need somebody, especially if you've got Mark on board, I would love to be on board too. I think it'd be so cool to work with him because I've seen his videos and he seems like a cool guy. So wouldn't you know, Five Nights at Freddy's, the musical, starts coming together and Mark says, yeah, let's do it. You got to believe that Sarah's one of the first, texting. Obviously, David was the first text. Well, after David.
Did you choose David just because you're like, there's a pirate?
It definitely crossed my mind.
What I remember was at one point we had talked about this, and I said, look, this is just a shot in the dark, but if you ever decide to do a Five Nights at Freddy's musical, I will happily play Foxy. Just do a voice or whatever.
Yeah, I think you I don't want to say you called it, but we knew you had interest, and it was going to feel like the top 10 anime betrayals to be like, David, I've cast you as Freddy Fazbear. It's not going to happen. Well, that's fine. I can do it. You could have done it. But it was definitely like, no, we've got Foxy locked down. We know who's playing Foxy already. Aww. So, yeah, that's how the cast came together.
Okay. And then it began as just because I think that besides you and of course, everybody that was involved, I know when I first helped out, Scott was there and all that. I mean, it was a very small crew, and you just did the first 2 nights to start with.
Yeah. And
you said you didn't have a plan for plan 3 or 4 and 5?
No, that's right. In fact, that goes back to my question that I still want to hear from everybody too.
Okay.
I thought that we were just going to do night 1. It was just going to be night 1. And Mark was like, hey, I'll pay you if I can put it on my channel instead, because I would like to have this. Mm-hmm. And Peter and I talked about it. And we were like, could we, suggest to Mark, can we do 2 nights and get some synergy between us where the story kind of continues and give him one and we get one? And Mark was like, oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that instead. Mm-hmm. But that was it. So it was supposed to be 1 night. And then we're like, let's do 2 nights so that each of us get it on our channel. That was supposed to be the end. And we didn't think there would be enough demand to have to go back and do a 3rd one. And wouldn't you know, the internet was not so easily satiated. Mm-hmm. So then, after those first 2 nights dropped and everything just kind of exploded.
How long did it take to get to the 3rd night? Or how long after?
It was about a month later that we started going, we really should do a 3rd night. We didn't have it on the radar. We didn't expect to. We didn't plan for it. And that's where I think we believed maybe at that point, maybe we should do 5 Nights at Freddy's. What if we should?
Nights.
So, and even then, we did truly believe that if we make it to 5 nights, A, it'll be a miracle because this is getting tough to schedule. B, there's definitely not going to be more than 5 nights. No way. It'll be those 5 nights and then we'll be done and wipe our hands and be over with. And we committed to that. So now I'm curious to hear from you guys. When you first heard that Random Encounters was doing a 5 Nights at Freddy's thing, how long did you expect? Like months, years? Like how long?
I assumed you guys were going to do 3, 4, and 5, like not long after this.
Okay.
Because there was already showing some popularity. I didn't know it was going to be that big.
Yeah.
But like, there's that part of my brain. I'm like, oh, they'll probably do 3, 4, and 5. It's kind of a no-brainer.
So like 6 months, that kind of thing. You kind of were like 6 months, and they'll do probably 5 videos. Is that kind of?
Oh no! Oh, like how long over the? I don't know when. I just knew you were going to do 3, 4, and 5.
Eventually.
Really...
See, I'm one of those people who knows a little bit more about the internal workings, having worked with y'all for a few years before we did this.
You'd seen us in action or lack thereof.
Right. I believe it was 2012, I want to say, was when I started working with you for the first time.
Yeah.
And
super early
on, which is crazy to me to think about now. Yeah,
you've just
celebrated your 14th anniversary.
I know.
Which is crazy.
Oh my
God.
God.
It is.
And amazing at the same time.
Lucky to be here.
I know. I mean, a lot of it is talent, a lot of it is luck. I get it.
A ton of it is luck. Yeah, 1000%.
Mm-hmm. But
so you had that background, not bias, insight.
Yes. So the thing was, looking at that, I thought to myself, well, you got night 1 and night 2. In my back of my head is like, there's inevitably going to be a demand for nights 3, 4, and 5 because people like that cyclical nature. They see it, they go, ooh, there's bound to be more.
Yeah.
Even if it seemed like a complete package between those 2 nights.
I'm going to be pedantic. Is it cyclical or cyclical?
Potato.
Okay, I didn't know.
I think.
Do you know?
I've always heard cyclical, but
That's what I
Okay, cyclical.
I understood what you meant.
Bite my head off. Why not? No.
That's why I said pedantic.
I appreciate you being pedantic. Thank you. I want to be.
Or is that pedantic?
I was being pedantic.
AJ?
Is it orthodontic?
Look. I said in front of my grand boss, liaison instead of liaison, and he corrected me, and I'm like, why did I do that? And I still have my job, so
happens the best of us.
That's fair. Hey, so, but again, on the internal end of things, I'm like, I knew there was going to be more because I knew it was inevitably going to happen. I had no idea when it was going to happen because I also know internally how difficult it is for you to make these, not just with the people you have and the team you have, but trying to reach out to guests who have their own schedules. And again, you're working with, in this case, you've got Mark on board. You've got Xander. You've got Sarah. I didn't think me being a part of it was going to be difficult because you're just always like, hey, Dave, I'm there. I'm already there.
We believe in you.
Yeah. And it's not like I have to memorize a bunch of dialogue. I just do a few lines for the phone guy, and then the rest of it just...
And then you lay on the floor and move. When did Gwen get involved, actually? Gwen, when did you...
Yeah, you have the hardest answer for this one, I think.
So I think I first had involvement with it literally just kind of offhandedly because when night 5 was coming together, I remember I was hanging out with AJ like the week before we were supposed to film, and he was stressed, and I was like, why are you stressed? And he's like, I don't think I have enough hands to do all the things we need. We have so many puppets, we have mics, we have camera, we have like so many moving pieces on night 5, and I just need extra hands. And I love it because it's so AJ. He didn't want to flat out ask if I was free because he knew I was working that weekend. And I was like, I am working and I can't get out of my shift, but I'll be off at 10 and I can just come straight to your house if you will still be filming by then. And he was like, yes, please show up.
We'll definitely be filming still by then.
Oh, yeah.
I literally walked in the door after my work shift and found people... I'm trying to remember. I know there was flour everywhere. I know there was like way more people than I thought there would be, just kind of like sitting in dark corners waiting to be needed. And I just joined the little crowd of people in dark corners. And I think I eventually got to... I was puppeting Chica at some point.
I say Chica probably smells like Olive Garden because you just got off your shift carrying trays and spilling Alfredo sauce. Now Chica smells like she works at Olive Garden.
Yeah. I think my greatest claim to fame at that point was that Matt Pat kicked a water bottle almost directly at my head.
Oh, God.
That was fabulous.
Some people pay for that.
Yeah, no. But no, I really didn't have any involvement at all until night 5.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I'm not sure you can really answer that question, actually. Yeah. Everybody else here was on like ground level of knowing what was coming.
I remember visiting out here in California and actually talking with Peter at some point, and him being just gushing that he just had a really, really good video come out. And I think timing wise, it was right after night 1 and 2.
Okay.
And he was talking about how wonderful it was for the channel, how much impact it had on you guys' lives, how like everyone got to be full time at Random Encounters right about then. And it really was a very life changing musical for a lot of us.
Were you guys still working at
I was, I believe I was the last one hanging on to my job because I was the only one able to tolerate our boss. That sounds.
This is a VH1 tell-all now.
It does feel like I'm sharing my trauma.
I won't ask where you worked, but
no, we won't name names.
The honest truth is, I invited my boss to our wedding. Actually,
she sent us a lovely popcorn maker.
Yeah, the popcorn machine over there is from my old boss.
She's actually really lovely. She's interesting boss.
Yeah, she's the kind of person that you can only spend so long in the room with before you're like, oh, you just offended me again. Oh, you've insulted me again. Oh, this is normal for you. I see.
At least she sent you the popcorn maker.
Yeah, she's sweet and she doesn't mean ill, but she often causes ill. I think that's where like gradually more people were like, we gotta get out of here. So I was the last one, still doing a couple days a week with her until I think 2016 sometime.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, you were there for quite a while.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now I'm trying to get back into the timeline of, you filmed the 2 nights, and then MatPat was involved with the first 2. When did he come on board?
Yeah, right. So he wasn't involved in the first 2, and we really didn't plan for him to be in on it until finalizing the scripts for night 4 and 5. And Matt was still, because we didn't know if Mark was coming back for night 4. It was really difficult to plan ahead and go, what's the story? Who are they going to go find and recruit after night 3?
So would it have been MatPat if it wasn't?
MatPat was an option. Gerard was an option.
Oh, okay.
So there were a lot of, we were still, we talked about like Game Grumps at some point and stuff too, but
this is also when you were still involved with Maker, right?
Yeah. So like a lot of the gaming talent of the era was kind of on the table of, could, we get them? Would they be interested? I don't remember if Daco was like blowing up at that point or not. I don't remember
I don't
YouTube
think
history.
so, but
yeah. So, but there were definitely some like people that were known in the space, people that we'd worked with before. And we were kind of like keeping all of our options open about who they might come, meet. So I would say like MatPat was a pretty late addition to the FNaF musicals, and he wasn't at all in mind back when we did nights 1 and 2. It was just not part of it.
Yeah, because you got Nate wants to battle for the 3rd night, and I could see that because he worked on other projects with you before that,
and he had a good FNaF career at that point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had released a lot of music.
Yeah, all the people that you pulled had some connection with the franchise in a meaningful way.
Yeah, and I love that the original Five Nights at Freddy's musical was populated mostly with Five Nights at Freddy's related personalities, which is cool.
When it came to the human characters, there was recognizable people from that sphere.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you got us puppeteer voice actors just being like, and we're here too.
We know it. we watch the games, but honestly, a lot of us were exposed through those other people on the set.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is real. So I have a friend who lives up in Washington. We were talking, and she designs costumes, and she was like, "Oh, this was again years ago, and I had just worked on Five Nights at Freddy's." And she's like, "Oh, I made these Five Nights at Freddy's costumes," and I had said, "Oh, did you see the musical?" And she's like, "Of course I saw the musical. I wish I could have worked on it because I could have used my costumes for." I said, "I actually worked on that musical." She's like, "Wait, what?" Of course I knew it, but the fact that it was like, "Oh, it's big enough that other people are like, yeah."
I think that one of the things that made that stand out was it was still early enough internet that we weren't seeing on YouTube like everybody picking up Five Nights at Freddy's and doing Five Nights at Freddy's songs and stuff, especially with actors and sets and stuff. Nowadays, that doesn't sound nearly as revolutionary. There's so many talented people that will do exactly that and more. So it really is like, I hate to be like, it wouldn't work today.
Yeah.
But there's a real part of me. It's like YouTube has gotten so big and so powerful that it's you could expect 5 FNaF musicals to drop at this point.
Yeah.
If somebody makes the next Five Nights at Freddy's game.
And so we got night 3, and then night 4. Was night 4 that long afterwards? It didn't.
It was quite a while after.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember
that was the slog of will he, won't he with Mark.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, by that point, I remember because when I first met Mark, and I'm gonna go out on a little tangent here and be the one. You had given me some of your business cards. I met him at Comic-Con, gave him one of your cards, and he recognized that you were with Maker and was therefore amenable to the idea of working with you. So. So
it's all David.
And that all led to my.
All David.
That
it's
eventually,
David all along.
I always come back.
There you go.
Oh my god.
There you go.
I mean, considering I'm one of the 2 people playing Afton, or
Yes.
I guess as the reveal came in the prequels, Henry, Emily.
Oh my, we're really dropping spoilers.
Well, if you look all the way back like that, it is really funny to be like, we had no idea. The story had no twists or turns.
The phone guy was just going to be a bit part at the beginning of the first one, and they had me do that bit.
Because I do remember you telling me this, AJ, on the first night. Like, oh, we already have Sarah and Xander doing bit parts as the cops at the end, and I wanted David to have something that wasn't just Foxy.
Yeah.
So that's why he had him as phone guy.
A fateful decision.
Indeed.
Very
convenient, though.
Oh, very.
Yes.
Yeah. It worked out
very well for us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's later on, it's okay, we can't get Matt, but we got David to do the...
Oh, yeah. So much was handled by that one little choice of hey, David, can you be phone guy?
Yeah. I mean, you all made that... You all had the, necessity breeds creativity, and therefore you... And a limitation as well. So when it's Matt's hard to get by, but as long as we have someone in the bear costume.
Yeah.
And we didn't... Now, keep in mind, at this point, we're going back to night 4.
Yeah.
We didn't get the bear... I mean, the bear costume was the big reveal.
Where did that bear costume come from?
It's gotta be an Amazon purchase, because
It is definitely an Amazon purchase.
Yeah.
You can still find it on Amazon.
Nice.
I've seen so many people at
But the quality is worse. I've seen the quality is continued to... they're not spending as much on these costumes anymore.
Okay, so we actually... For clarity, we have 3 versions of that bear suit.
Oh, wow.
In this house. We have the totally wrecked one that shows up at the end of night 5. And then as we were going back and doing prequels, we needed, the clean version of it, completely untouched.
Perfectly clean. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And then we have kind of a
the middle ground.
Version
Yeah, he's starting to get his hands dirty.
Did you work on the new versions, I'm assuming? Or no?
I mean, I think I ordered them. They really are they're straight off the internet. There's no real modification to them. You stick a top hat on it and it's suddenly phone guy.
Oh, wow.
But you can see a massive difference. The original mask that we bought, it's completely burned to a crisp. It's got stuffing falling out of it, and it's still better made than the newest one that we ordered.
Yeah.
So, that's so fascinating to note because we didn't know where it was going to go from there.
No.
But by the time we got to night 4, I was definitely realized, people's career trajectories had changed. Mark, at the time I met him at Comic-Con, Mark was still really approachable and just really casual. By the time we get to there, a few years later, now it's Mark has to be understandably behind a bit of a wall because he can't just be approached by anybody. You want to do a collab? You want to do a thing? Luckily, we had that rapport established with him, but he's a busy guy. He's getting huge.
Yes.
So
Mark was going through a lot of personal stuff in between too, which I don't need to get into. And I think a lot of people have heard direct from him about it. But yeah, it was a tough year for him. And it's nice that he still associates those first 2 nights as a good memory, knowing that he had a hard year ahead of him. But it was really kind of him to come back around ultimately and finish the series with us too. So I would feel so bad thinking that it was a rough spot for him to be in, and yet he handled himself, really well, and he put a great performance together for us and changed a lot of our lives a little bit.
Oh yeah. Night 4 was a really interesting shoot too, because we, at the time we actually shot a bunch of that that was Nate's apartment, right?
It was, yeah.
At the time, Nate
just let us kind of invade his home.
Although the wild part, because I saw the video And I'm like, wait, I recognize that house. The front of the house is our friend, also a friend of the show's, Benjamin Spiegel's house.
Oh,
yeah. We shot part of the the part where they're driving in the car with Nate. Yeah. We shot that in front of Ben's house.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. At the time, yeah.
Yeah,
and
he came in clutch for us because we needed that.
Yeah, Ben's awesome like that.
He's done it before too. When we did the E3 musical.
Yes, I was thinking that was it's so funny to be like, that's the second time Ben actually helped us out.
Yeah, we went to Ben's house between things at E3. I know this is a completely different story, and we brought Sean DeCapel with us.
Yeah,
and we recorded his vocals there.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's wild to think like multiple random encounters things have been at Ben's house.
Hi, Ben.
Hi, Ben.
Hey, we appreciate it still. It's kind of a big deal, actually. The E3 one feels so small by comparison, like, ultimately. Because we showed up like in the middle of the night, I feel like, for FNaF, too. And it was like partly just Nate wasn't even like feeling great at that point. Like, he was kind of, hanging in there, and we'll make it quick, but we have to get something together.
It definitely helped that the place we shot, without revealing too much, where Nate was living at the time was really close to where Ben was living.
Yeah.
So it was just a hop, skip, and a jump for Nate to get there. Thankfully, I think that made things easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, Night 4 was... I remember that being a lot of fun in a very strange and fascinating way.
When was that? That was 2016?
Yeah.
Oh, I know why. I was like, why didn't I help out with it? I'm like, because I was working in a not so great environment.
Yeah.
And basically, anytime I tried to take off work, I was like, where are you going? Why are you taking time off work?
Oh, great.
Yeah. So then, I guess that kind of brings us around to Night 5, right?
Yeah, Night 5.
Yeah, Night 5. And Night 5 was, you'd already related some of the story, Gwen, of your experience with that. And luckily, that was I think the second time I feel like I got to properly be in the same space with you. The first time we all met was through Yandere Simulator.
Yeah, the Senpai Notice Me musical, which was also a whole lot of more people than I expected sitting in dark corners waiting for things to happen.
That was at YouTube Space, though, so that was different.
Oh, that was a wild...
Yeah. But here we are all at your old place filming that. And then I remember at the time I'd just gotten my first real proper smartphone.
Oh, that's
so
right.
I was taking pictures all over the set, and those were some of the first pictures on my phone. They're still there. But we had Nate and Mark and Matt. We somehow managed to get everybody on set because like Xander was there.
Yeah.
Sarah was there. And I remember very distinctly like being on the floor with and Jordan was helping with puppeteering. You and I were there. Yeah. I remember very distinctly a moment where we're all trying to cram together on the floor holding the puppets up.
Yep.
And I remember like the top of your head and the top of my head were touching. I just kind of looked over at you and you're just like, I was just like, hi. And I was like, hi. And I was just like that awkward but hilarious moment. Like we are doing this and we are in a weirdly intimate space and we're just having a funny time.
Puppeteering.
It's the theater kid experience. It's we were not friends until 2 seconds ago, but now we have to.
Now we're best friends.
Luckily we had established that rapport beforehand.
Yes, thank goodness.
On Senpai Notice Me.
But that is so real that like a lot I think of puppeteering and a lot of like I've been in close spaces with so many people at this point, all because I have to be holding Freddy and somebody else has to be holding Bonnie and somebody else has to be holding Chica and you're like, this is just the way those puppets work and they make people friends fast.
Nothing bonds you like having your armpit in someone else's face for like 40 minutes.
Well, that first night, because I had to play Freddy and smack my hand against the glass.
Oh, yeah.
And Scott's next to me with to like fix the lights and all that.
Yeah.
And we're just had a whole chat about Mary Poppins and then got into a debate why he thought Mary Poppins was actually a terrible person and why I didn't think that.
That is such a Scott take. I think Scott looks for opportunities to like have the shocking like alter opinion to somebody else.
Yeah. I do appreciate on the topic of Scott that you were able to work some of the when you put the supercut together. It was all of them as one movie, and you got to throw in some like in jokes about the sweeping man.
Oh
yes.
Yeah. I was trying to remember if Scott was still there by that point or when he moved away.
He was still living.
So actually, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
When you were making the original like nights, did you have any concept of these things happening in between them? Like, did you already kind of have planned what would make it into a supercut?
No, actually, we had like virtually no supercut plan because again, we thought 2 nights, that'll be it. It was literally just, let's get Mark in, let's sing a little song. He gets arrested, that's the end. And now, you know, like looking back, it's like there was so much more we could have done. There's stuff we've expanded. Again, the idea of phone guy being like, it's just a guy on the phone, to being, he's actually the killer at the end, to being, he's actually the co-founder of Freddy's and he's got a different name. Like, wild how much changed.
When did, because once you got Night 5 all filmed, when did you, there was a supercut. When did that come out? I'm trying to remember.
It was really close after. We ended with Matt Pat being unmasked.
Yes.
And left everybody hanging for probably 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Yeah, something like that. Which I think was the right amount of time. It let everybody cook their theories a little bit and like build their expectations and still gave us like enough relevance to like come back and like finish it and give them exactly what they were kind of looking for.
Because that stream was huge. It was
massive.
Yeah, biggest stream of my life. Never done something that big again.
Like, it got to 1 million, like, in that first, like, few hours, if I recall. I was like, oh, my God.
It was really fast.
Yeah.
I would have to go back and look at numbers, but it was really fast.
It's very lightning in a bottle kind of moment, you know?
Yeah.
Very, yeah.
Well, again, it had just the right place, right time with the right people, and it had accrued for about a year. So
right.
It was like, in some ways, it makes me wonder if we benefited from delaying so long between nights 3 and nights 4. Just knowing that people were waiting and chomping at the bit a little and going, why isn't it done? Why isn't it done? Who are they going to go get? And then having Mark return at the end of that long wait was like, you know, I hate to say it, but I don't know that we would have gotten that reaction. You know, if the capstone nights 4 and 5 ended up with like, oh, here's Joe Schmo that they, you know, like what other YouTuber would have had that reaction at the end of that long wait?
Yeah.
But Mark.
And
So,
then, I know he also dyed his hair at that time, and he had to like, justify him keeping the dye.
It was the era of all the YouTubers dyeing their hair, and it was killing me. Be like, why are you all doing this? I'm the only one that needs continuity, and you're all making my life difficult. Stop dyeing your hair.
I'm just going to mention just 2 words real quick. Monster Gulch.
Monster Gulch. Mark's wig for Monster Gulch.
That is
And,
the worst.
Dodgers wig.
well.
Yep. Dodgers.
okay. At least Dodger's wig looks like she went. It's like messy, and she just hasn't showered in days.
Exactly.
That wig is awful. I'm sorry. That was and you know what?
It was a choice.
It was, and it happens. Like if you, Dave and I just saw Haunted, like at the Haunted Mansion movie, like a few years ago, and saw the wig on Rosario Dawson, and boy, that's a terrible wig.
Bad wigs, man.
Bad wigs. Yeah. It's a hit or miss.
You can't unsee them once someone's got one on. You're like, oh, every shot of you is killing me.
So yeah, the supercut really helped finalize things, and we'd filmed it all that same night, so a bunch of us already knew it was going to happen. But man, not seeing the whole picture made it all very interesting, especially when, if I may put a question, it's like suddenly, you know, you've got people, you're forced to kind of, because of what you were doing, you were thinking it was only this. Now you're having to come up with your own lore and trying to shoehorn in some of the existing lore, even though, let's be real, Scott's lore for Five Nights at Freddy's is like just weird and out there and broad, and there's little weird. You have to like read a whole journal to get like several books, and
we had a conversation with Ash about the movie, and even when she tried to explain it, I'm like, this is a lot.
Yeah, I might call it ever changing even.
Mm-hmm.
And we will talk about Ash a little more in a bit, because we are going to eventually. I want to talk also about the first night.
What was the time span between the first 5 nights and then now going into the prequels?
So it was a little bit more spread out, I feel like, because of the fact that we did not know what the prequels were going to turn into when we technically started them.
Okay.
Because we, after, it was probably a year later, we did Ground Zero.
Yeah.
And Ground Zero was supposed to be just a standalone happy little FNaF thing. And we were like, oh, like, wouldn't it be nice to do a happy FNaF for once with like bright colors or whatever. And we brought in CG5 for it. And it was, supposed to be a standalone.
But we did leave the door open.
I'm sorry, I missed. We did Blood and Tears.
We did, but
less than a year later.
Yeah, that was like 2 months after.
And that was also supposed to be standalone, I assume. Right?
That was also supposed to be standalone.
Yeah, but that one did stay almost standalone.
Yes,
but it did have a little hint because it was supposed to set up how Purple Guy
exactly ends up at the same office with Melissa Battle. And
and it's weird again knowing what I know now because when the way that ended, the way that night 5 ended, it suddenly having to have Matt Pat have been the mastermind the whole time. And I joke about this with people, especially to this day. It was I love getting to play that part for the phone guy because it was it was a bit part. And then I don't know if I've said this before on the podcast, but I joke with people like, sure, Matt Pat may be David Prowse, but I'm James Earl Jones.
That's true.
I'm the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah, you're the one that they're actually thinking of.
Okay, I'm married to this man. I live with him and all that. That your scream at the end of the day 5
burning
scared me. Like,
burning alive.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's like that. Like you can hear a picture. You could take that screenshot and just hear the.
Oh no! I like afterwards. I'm like, I hate you so much, and he's like, why? I'm like, because you scared me. Oh my goodness!
I hadn't quite hit some of the mic filters that I have now. I'm still learning about how to apply that.
Sure.
So I was having to really play with the volume to get the takes the way it was needed.
Sure.
So
then again, you'll do like scary voices, or there's times you've done like laughs, and I'm just like, nope. So so I think you did a really good job.
Thank you. I'm it's one of those roles I can always say I'm really proud of. I'm glad I got to revisit it later.
Yeah.
And several times actually going for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being Foxy as well.
Yeah.
And Foxy gets some great moments.
So this is interesting because I was thinking about starting with that night 1, looking at all the characters because there's not that many characters in it, right?
Okay, yeah.
There's the 4 animatronics, there's the phone guy, there's your security guard.
Right.
And technically there's the puppet.
Oh yeah, the puppet.
The puppet counts,
right,
I guess.
Because you had to throw in a little nod to FNaF 2.
Which you kind of touched on saying, we've along the way worked in more references to some of the games and stuff.
Yeah, there's a little nod to the puppet. There's also the nod to oh my gosh, what is the mangle with the mask?
The mangle mask, which we still have, by the way. It's in really bad shape, but I kept it all these years later.
That's good. Oh wow.
Maybe if we ever get Mark back here again, we'll ask him if he wants to wear it around for some photos. But
I still have a video of David and with the puppet and Mark holding it and baking chips with each other.
We had Mark as Mangle flirting with Foxy, and Foxy had his. It's not canon at all.
Yeah,
but it was just fun. I'm like, oh well, it's good to see you.
It's terribly disturbing when you look at the horrible mask, and they're like, "What is happening here? What is the scene that's unfolding?" But I was thinking about Phone Guy as a particularly interesting case of. A lot of the characters, like the animatronics, that if it's going to continue past those 2 nights, they're going to be important. And then you get to the end of the 5 nights, you're like, if we're going to do any more, they're going to be important still. But Phone Guy is one where it feels like, he's a throwaway. And then you get to night 5, you're like, he's not a throwaway, he's important. And then you're like, okay, but his story is over. And then you get to the end of Ground Zero, like, he comes back. Oh, but he's probably just a throwaway. And then Web of Lies kicks off and he's not a throw, but Matt Pat's playing him. So is Phone Guy actually still here? And then you get to First Nights at Freddy's, and before that even, you get to again we skip right over. He shows up briefly at the end of the Blood and Tears song.
That's right.
And then he shows up at the end of kind of in the middle.
Ground Zero.
I was gonna say the Monster in Your Head one.
Monster in Your Head. Okay.
Yeah, he shows up and he has kind of a prominent role. Phone Guy stops and goes and stops and goes, and you're constantly he's done now, isn't he? And you get to the end of the series, this guy has had the most stop and go and discover more about him every time you think he's done.
Was Monster That Lives in Your Head also standalone, or was that when?
No, so Monster.
It was intended to be
ish
until we got far enough in.
I feel like we realized there was going to be a prequel thing of some sort after Web of Lies.
Yes.
Okay. And Web of Lies, it ended on a cliffhanger. We knew we had to finish it. It was always intended to have kind of one more episode. And as things occurred, life events 2020, various things, it kind of stretched longer and longer. And Monster in Your Head was intended to be standalone in terms of its individual story, but it really did. It was a jumping off point where we were like, Vanny is a really interesting character. and Vanny would have a fun impact on Web of Lies if she's involved in what comes next.
How did you bring in Ash? Like, because I know she designed that costume.
She did. So Ash is a lovely story. We were at Disneyland. We were hanging out, just having fun, doing nothing. And Disneyland is one of my favorite places. It's usually where somebody recognizes who we are. It's in a giant crowd, and they're having a good time too, and they feel comfortable coming up and just saying hi. And they, like, everybody knows it's going to be like a 30-second thing, and everyone will move on. And Ash was one of those people. She literally saw us eating at one of the restaurants at Disney, walked by and said, "Hey, I know who you are. My name is Ash. I think you're super cool." She was there with her mom, and we were like, "Hey, what do you do? What's your name?" And like exchanged a little bit of information. Found out she was a cosplayer, got her Instagram handle from her, and then both carried on with our day, except for I immediately looked her up and went, "She's good." Oh my gosh, she's good.
Yeah, she undersold herself a little, I think.
So much. And she was, I think, just completing Vanny.
Oh my god.
And I took one look at it and was like, this is so good. And I don't remember what conversation we were having about future plans and trying to put together musicals or something, but I ended up just telling him, I was like, "Hey, that Ash girl that we met has this amazing cosplay. If she's at all willing to come work with us and let us use it,
maybe we should find a use
for
Vanny. Yeah, let's do something about Vanny, because Ash has a choir background and has a great cosplay background. Like, this is a good match. And people are looking for more FNaF, and I know we're not ready to start on the biggest big thing, but maybe we can find an interim project to introduce Vanny and then see if there's more we can do."
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened, is work Vanny into a bigger scheme and use that as like the breadcrumb trail of like, hold off, we're still working, but you can have this one right now.
Because Vanny's from, okay, now I'm trying to recall all the little Five Nights at Freddy's knowledge.
There's so much to have to recall.
I don't blame you. It's a lot.
She's from Security Breach.
Yeah.
That's her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which is, I think, the one thing you all lifted from Security Breach, really.
Pretty much.
Because I realized that I'm like, why didn't you take more from Security
The
Breach?
glam rocks are great.
Yeah.
They really are. But I think the canon that we had of there being like one Freddy, one Foxy, one Bonnie, we really were like, these are the characters that we've built. And throwing in a glam rock Freddy causes a whole lot of other questions.
Right.
And like,
But to be
what's
fair,
going on?
in hindsight, we had that whole song, Taking Back Fazbear's, where Foxy breaks it down. That was the ideal moment where we could have just splashed like a glam rock like makeup on one of them, like rocking out, and we could have got, it would be like the Golden Freddy reference.
Yeah, I was about to say,
save you from night 3.
You found some very, very cheeky ways to work like certain characters in there as little
that
nods.
was it, and we missed it. Now I'm looking back going, one quick moment where they have like rock or glam makeup on, singing that would have been really fun. As like, there's your reference, glam rock Freddy.
I'm assuming it would have been tough to like have it in a location that would look like that Pizzaplex.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. To be fair, you all did more with Vanny than the game did with Vanny.
And I am so glad we did, because I think Vanny's a cool idea. I don't know
underutilized hugely in Security Breach, from what I know.
Yeah.
And then you all took Vanny and Vanessa and gave them a much bigger story.
Yeah, and I would hope that the games will find a way to go back and do more with those characters. I don't remember how they like resolve all of them. I think it's a little nebulous depending on which ending you get and stuff. So who knows? Maybe we're still in for treats with those characters in the future games, but
and then with Web of Lies, okay, going back, because I know we jumped to Monster Lives Near It. With Web of Lies, that was with Adriana Figueroa.
Yep.
And then you brought in, I know he has a last name, but I just think Casey.
Casey Dwyer.
Thank you. I know he has a
Yeah, Glitch Trap.
Glitch Trap.
Do you remember why we picked Glitch Trap as like being like such the villain?
I mean, Help Wanted had just come out, and it was getting some buzz, and Glitch Trap's design, kind of like Vanny, is like, oh, that's really cool. What a scary looking rabbit. I wonder what we could do with that.
You know, as much as the series is about a bear, it seems like most of the villainous characters are rabbits.
It does seem that. I think that's like the moral of the story is don't trust rabbits.
Don't trust rabbits. They're always evil.
Bugs? Yeah. Don't trust him.
Everybody blames Foxy for the bite, but really, who's to say it wasn't Bonnie?
Yeah, right? So I think that is just the right time, right place kind of thing of a character that's, again, sounded interesting, like Vanny, where we said, oh, that's a good opening. We need another villain character. We want it to be someone that, a character that a human could play rather than a puppet. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this with Baby earlier, too, because Baby's one of those like characters where we went 5 nights at Freddy's and we didn't have a single reference to Baby. Like, Circus Baby just didn't exist in the FNaF musical.
Yeah.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, okay, well, we can have an actor play Baby and do one throwaway thing just to give a little purple guy nod or whatever.
Yeah.
And did it. And that was, the story begins and it immediately ends again. That's all of Baby. We don't need more of Baby. Baby's done.
Yeah.
And it's not until you get to, like, Web of Lies and we're on a cliffhanger and we start talking about where is it going, and suddenly Baby re-enters the conversation. You're like, I think Circus Baby actually has more story here. And suddenly Baby shoots back through the roof like she's going to be super involved in all of First Nights at Freddy's, actually. Mm-hmm. So really funny, zigzag of whether or not this character matters in the FNaF musical or doesn't matter.
Yeah. And again, this is like, you're all doing these bits and bobs and they figure, I assume that there wasn't necessarily a plan to like, how are we going to tie this all together later? Yeah. We're just going to be like, we'll figure it out when we get there, right?
I'm trying to remember. I believe at the end of Web of Lies, we had already decided that they were going to sister location in that box. Is that correct?
I do believe that was our expectation, was that's where the box was going.
But I don't think there was a lot of other things decided. And definitely, like, Web of Lies was such a springboard. It really was like we opened every cupboard in our imagination and things just kept falling out.
It was all tucked in there and then nobody knew it was there until the door was open and it started pouring out.
Yeah, and it was so fun. The number of strings we were pulling, being like, okay, so here's what we made already. Here's the things we know. Here's where things end up. And also, like, here's things that we wish had more emotional impact. I know AJ talked so many times about wanting Balloon Boy to have more things going for him before.
Perfect example again,
ending.
Character that wasn't there in nights 1, 2, or 3, just didn't exist, didn't need him. And like you said, had to work him in somewhere. So night 4, we're like, this is how we can incorporate Balloon Boy. And we're going to kill him at the end of night 4. He's dead by night 5.
Much like we were going to kill Springtrap.
Yeah, exactly. Like, these things happen. You work them in, they're there for 5 minutes. Like, there, they got in the story. And then you end up with, like, this character, I need everybody to love this character so it actually matters what happened to them in the originals. Aww. So then you like, all right, Balloon Boy is integral from Dark Remains on to the end of Virus.
Puppet was one that you really wanted to tie more in. And
to keep the puppet sleeping. Like, well, who cares? Why is the puppet sleeping? Who gives a crap about the puppet, right? Or why he dies?
I feel for that puppet because I spent a good half hour trying, because it was like you brought in there like
to work with.
Oh,
the puppet's terrible.
Puppet is awful.
You brought it in and you're like, yeah, sorry, it's all tangled together. And I'm like, hold on, I got this. And then I spent like a half hour trying to unknot it. And
that's another key contribution right there. Never forget that Kaela saved the puppet.
Yeah, you're doing the Lord's work. That puppet was such a nightmare.
Yeah,
it was. We've all cursed the puppet so many times.
Yeah, when I saw, I'm like, oh, but fun. One of the things that I know I do have is quote unquote nimble fingers. So like, if you give me a knot, I can fairly be able to figure it out or unknot it.
You have a high dexterity.
I have that in that way. Yeah. But so that was like, okay. And after that, I'm like, I bond with you, puppet. We spent a half hour together. Then I was the person that actually dropped that puppet.
Yeah.
With keep the puppet away.
Which was not an easy drop either, because you're trying to get him to land in frame. You're trying to get him to like not swing into Mark's face. And you're trying to get him maybe to be like, I can tell like where the arms and legs are. So he looks, that's a lot to keep track of a thing on cruddy little strings that just wants to flop and tangle.
That shot, by the way, of the puppet coming down and then Mark looking toward the camera going, is like my favorite freeze frame of his face in the whole thing.
Yeah, it is maybe one of the most iconic things in that first night is that puppet dropping down and him going, there was a lot of theorizing about the puppet's identity and whether once we had done Ground Zero, if this was like the spirit of Michael Afton possessing the puppet. Because I think that's the puppet in the games is possessed by one of these like murder victims.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever think about that? See that? Did you speculate at all about like, should the puppet have an identity? Or?
I didn't really think of the puppet having an identity, honestly. Okay. I just thought of the puppet just being a Because it's like all he does is because he appeared in game 2, 3.
Yeah, the second game.
Second game. And it's like all he does is like you hear the music box and you're like crap, 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 and then just jumps out.
Yeah.
There wasn't much to it other than just being a extra mechanism to basically
one more thing to stress you out.
Exactly.
I can't speak for, I won't speak for you, but I think we've had this discussion before. I've never been very keen on like, oh my god, when there's so much of the lore and it gets so esoteric, I'm a little bit like, I've kind of lost interest.
Yeah.
It feels like it gets into the weeds way too much. And it doesn't feel like it was planned in advance. It all kind of feels like it was like an afterthought, a reaction.
Yeah.
And that's not me digging at Scott Cawthon or anybody who was involved in the creation of that story. Because in the same way, you had to come up with lore to justify some things later when there were questions that you didn't necessarily think needed to be answered. This was a one and done. So, and that's one of the things I wanted to get around to was actually like, as we get toward the end here, is like finding a way to tie that all together with your own lore. You created your own universe for this. It's connected enough, but just like any good like adaptation of a game to a movie, you change enough of it that it has enough that what people care about, but you make the lore make sense for what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going through this timeline. So you have some one-offs, and then we get into the prequel series.
Everything that comes after Web of Lies,
and
which was all written as one chunk. And it was all meant to be filmed kind of as much as one chunk as we could. Mm-hmm. But it was massive.
I know. Like I like we would come visit you and you're like, we're still working on it. It's such a beast.
Yeah, truly like a year-long process. I think it was a year and a half with like the script and stuff too. And obviously like you guys were getting pulled in and dragged along all along the way. So many recording sessions and just... I was trying to think. You were even here working on other things in between because we filmed That's Not My Neighbor together.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
While First Nights at Freddy's was still getting like stuff like filmed for it and edited together and soundtrack stuff being recorded. It was just like insane to be like, hey, Five Nights at Freddy's is still going and we'll need more of your help. But right now, let's do a That's Not My Neighbor musical together.
It was
since
fun.
we gotta put something out.
It was nice. It was nice and simple in terms of its execution.
Yeah, so much.
Yeah, it did exactly what we wanted, which is like keep everybody just watching while we work on the big thing.
Yeah, one set. Simple, relatively simple costumes and costume changes.
Yeah.
Really fun, stupid stuff we got to do.
Yeah.
Really fun, stupid stuff we got to do.
Did all sorts of like crazy, like, so what did you do today? Well, I glued a lot of sticky eyes, googly eyes all over myself, or I hung little worms on myself. I poured milk that was questionable on things.
Oh, it wasn't even milk.
The mayonnaise, watery mayonnaise.
Oh God, I saw it, and I like every time I looked, I'm like, oh God, no.
That is like the Random Encounters experience. Like, what are we doing here? How long are we doing it?
There is what is it, like a gif of like a cat that sniffs something and goes,
oh, I've seen that.
I just think of that.
That's the experience.
It was so much fun, though. And surprisingly, again, another in terms of views, another really successful
very successful.
one.
Yeah,
for what it was.
The right thing. It was creepy. People like creepy. It was indie. People like indie.
It was goofy. People like goofy.
It was papers, please ask.
The one thing I was surprised is Baby going on a killing spree. Which I know I'm like, which I was like, oh, Gwen's having the time of her life right now.
Okay, actually, I was having a grand day. But that is one of those really exciting scenes that I feel like, we never would have imagined happening after, night 5 or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we had a great opportunity. Again, somebody else that we just met through someone else, London, Benby. Benby. I was like struggling with what they go by online. Benby had access to an entire office building.
Whoa!
Like 10 floors of an office building.
Oh my God.
And we were like, how in the world do you have this? And they were like, well, I do. Do you want to use it? So we flew to Kansas City and got to use this office building. And also Benby gathered all of their friends. Like every person they knew that would have any interest in coming to this office building dressing like a scientist and getting murdered. Mm-hmm. And we got to actually do this massive killing spree in cubicles and like wonderful lighting. Like it was all so fun and so dramatic. I can't imagine FNAF not having that, But I also, like, I know when FNaF started, there's no way we would have imagined doing that.
It actually, because I was like, wow, that is quite the opposite. Oh, wow, they're going through a lot of floor. Oh, wow, because it is quite the set, which is, that's great to be.
Yeah, this is such an example. I was thinking about this because I feel like during the dregs, we're talking about kindergarten a little bit and how, like, our second kindergarten thing was at a school that was abandoned and how unlikely it was to get access to any building like that. FNaF was, that on steroids. Like, the chances were so impossibly low. Like, there's no reason that ever would have, like, clicked together. And it was just one of those, like, you can talk about trying to network. You can talk about trying to, film your best thing or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's out of your control. There are going to be things that are just right place, right time, lightning strikes, bottled, and it just comes together. And you're like, it'll never be replicated. Not by me. I can't make that happen. So, like, yeah, God put that all in a powder keg, lit the fuse. It was like, have fun! And boom! Just all went up. It was just absolutely insane. But never would have seen that coming from night one. Never.
No. And it led to here you are running around. I want to definitely pay service to you, not only having to play baby for so much of it, but also Glitch Trap. You were
you told me that you were in the costume.
I body acted Glitch Trap, which I think, I don't even remember if there was any discussion of anybody else being in that costume. I think it literally was, well, Gwen made the costume, Gwen gets to go in it.
You get tormented by your own creation.
And it was awful. I messed with that mask so many times.
Yeah, the phrase "back into the mask you hate" I think came up a lot.
Yes. There's just... Ash and I actually had great conversations when we were filming the Shadows of Agony fight between the two bunnies, because both of us had these masks and hers is so much better engineered. But we both were sitting there like griping to each other, being like, oh, do you have to do this thing too? Because what we were doing is, in order to keep the mask kind of on your head, you had to jut out your chin to keep it where it was supposed to be. And then you also had to say all your lines for timing. And so you're sitting there with this really awkward, like, face position with your chin jutted out and trying to, like, over enunciate so people can hear you through the mask and, like, all sorts of things. And it was really awful. But I love how Glitch Trap looks.
Yes.
And we talk so much about his head motion and how much his head motion is really dictated by how heavy his ears are. That mask won't do anything other than flop when you try to turn your head. The
broken neck ragdoll, creepiness of lurching.
It's just the physicality of that costume, like, demanded certain things. And it's so cool. I love how it turned out.
Oh, yeah. And you should be proud of it, too. Like, honestly, it's such a cool... I mean, it's got that great DIY quality to it, but at the same time, it's like, it feels like it fits in that universe.
It does. I love the scene that we added for First Nights at Freddy's.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, carry on.
I just love the scene that we added for First Nights at Freddy's where they were talking about how creepy this character is and how kids hate him and they're screaming and they're running from him.
Yeah, this Dawko cameo about him being cheated into buying what he thought was a good animatronic and it's terrible. And how, especially compared to Vanny, it feels that way.
By the way, this is just my own question. What time period did you imagine these taking place during? Because I know there were some for the prequel series. I know there was touches that I was like, oh, they're using a landline, and and I'm like, okay, I'm assuming, and then also he makes a joke about Radio Shack, which
I think we were loosely basing it in the 80s.
It's late 80s, early 90s.
Okay, that's where I was thinking too, because I was also, I maybe this wasn't as intentional, but maybe it was, why am I blanking on the main character's name? This is a curse of mine.
Lizzie?
Lizzie's outfit does have very much a 80s vibe to it.
It does.
And that was intentional.
It was. Yeah, no. So Lizzie's outfit, that pink sweater with the acid wash jeans, was kind of me and Katie working together. I was really gung-ho for that sweater because I thought it was a little reminiscent of the little pink outfit that Lizzie wears in the games, and I wanted that to be tied in there. But I also was like, she's an adult in the 80s, that big oversized sweater with the shirt underneath. Yeah. And then Katie was like, I have acid wash jeans. This will work perfectly. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what we want. And it was so fun to see her on set and be like, you just look like you walked. Like, obviously, it's all clothes that we bought for ourselves, like, in that time period, or now time period. But it was so nice to just wind back the clock just a little. Yeah,
and like, those touches don't go, at least for me, it didn't go unnoticed. I was just like, wait, because to be honest, I never really thought much of when it took place for the prequels. But then and I thought about it, like, oh, it would make sense. It would be, like,
There's lots of things that don't make sense because obviously 7 years later, Nate Wants to Battle was walking back in and talking about YouTube Ad Rev and Steven Universe.
Yeah.
So it's an alternate universe where some things happen out of order. The internet gets bigger faster, I think.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about Elizabeth from the games, like, doesn't live past the age of like 5 or 6 or something. Yeah. So it was nice to be like, we get to explore her living to be like a teenager and a young adult. That's the cat. He's playing with toys.
That's okay. Again, it's your own lore. You can do what you want with it. You're not tied to, like, again, I know some people who know the lore have been like, well, Henry Emily is this person. Again, I know I'm making that reference. I don't know anything about this person. I just know it was a good way for you to explain how Matt's character, William Afton, big quotes, is constantly taking people's identities and names and changing it so he can just get going and doing his favorite hobby, which is basically doing what the Ice Cream Man does.
Yeah.
Killing kids.
And that, like, I go by many names thing, we wanted that to have more payoff because it was like, people asked for years after those first 5 nights, like, so what was his deal exactly? Why was he like... So, and at the end of the day, we didn't want to be like, well, because you had a bad childhood, or because it's like, but we can say, because it's a pattern, and he's done all this successfully because he's already, like, doing this in the past.
Like any good serial killer, he has a pattern, and his pattern is when he gets tired, when he has to bail on a certain role, he'll take on someone else's persona, work his way into their lives, and then start killing children.
Yeah.
Also, go ahead. Go ahead. Because I was about to change the subject a little bit.
So I was just going to say that was another one of the fun strings we got to pull in First Nights, is going through the list of names that he puts at the end of the 5th night and go, okay, where did they all come from? And all of them, I believe, are now explained if you look closely enough.
Yes, I did notice that too through the process. Again, not just because I saw the scripts, because I had to read for the phone guy for the times when, again, if it's the phone guy, the bear mask is on. And that was, again, a fun thing to do.
Now, for William Afton, like the actual William Afton, it's
D'Usta.
Yeah. Fabulous fella.
So I noticed this maybe that kid and him were not in the same room, were they?
Oh no.
Why couldn't you get the kid and him?
Oh, we looked into it. We really wanted to. So that kid
scheduling was tough, especially because the building. We actually flew back to for a second time in Kansas City. Actually, it was our 3rd time in that building, technically.
Yes.
And it was in the process of being sold.
Oh.
It was also flooding because there were pipes broken.
Oh.
So it was a mess to try to, like, arrange. And we had originally... it was actually kind of a disaster zone. And Houston was really a great sport on very short notice to be like, this is what we've got available. This is how long we got to get there. The idea of, like, getting any child actor on a plane, like, within, like, 48 hours and being like, how do you afford it? How are you, like, who can you, like, get to go with them? And what's it going to do to, like, that specific child is a nephew. And I knew that I couldn't leave, my sister struggling with, like, how do I take care of the other kids, or how my husband can't just be home now. So it was like, we will figure out how to have a child available at a different time, but the building will not be available at that point.
Okay.
And so it was a very kind of slap together.
Yeah, because I was like, they are not in the same room.
I have to, though, give a lot of credit to Eloise, who did the green screen and visual effect work, because we weren't working with a great, like, studio setup for that child actor. And Eloise looked at that footage, looked at our, like, plates from the building, and was like, I can make this work. I can get that lighting pretty close. I was like, I didn't get the lighting very close. I was there filming each of them, and I was far too artsy with the lighting in the building and not conservative enough to make sure that they would match. And Eloise was like, leave it to me, and I will get it close enough that it won't distract the audience from following the story. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's the most important thing. Like, I know we can't sell the puppets are real and stuff. The chainsaw is actually killing people. Like, we're not going to fool people about a lot of things. But if you can not make it...
You have to suspend... I mean, the sign of a good movie is... Or a good story or movie is like, even if there's a flaw, if you can still just suspend disbelief and still get involved with the story, it's kind of like that joke of like with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. There's a bunch of anachronisms, but the thing is, it's like you don't think about them.
Yeah.
It's not distracting.
Yeah.
So it's the same with the puppets. You know, like in the back of your mind, you know they're puppets, but it's not distracting.
Yeah.
So
you've never seen their feet, and it feels like probably they're just puppets on someone's hand, and there's a bunch of people laying on the floor. Yeah. But if you can stop thinking about the people laying on the floor just off camera, then you can enjoy the movie just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. David, I had a question for you.
I might have an answer for you.
I hope so. This would be the perfect time to have one.
Okay.
I was thinking about you and Casey having a lot of similarity on this, where you're voicing Phone Guy, who is one of the big bads, and Casey's voicing Glitch Trap, one of the big bads. And I was thinking about how your scripts, whether or not you were getting each other's storylines, because I feel like we didn't give... You had the added advantage of Foxy, though, as well.
Right.
I was going to say, you only share technically a couple of scenes between Glitch Trap and Phone Guy.
Were you able to kind of figure out kind of what Casey was going to be doing with his character, and how much do you think he knew about your characters?
I didn't. To be honest, I didn't, other than what I knew from... playing Foxy and seeing Foxy's bits. Because again, Foxy's lines are just easy. Just put in gibberish. Yeah, I just give you like a big library of gibberish and you pick out the ones you like.
The soundboard of Foxy noises.
You have like years worth of Foxy noises that you could just clip together anytime you want for whatever.
For FNaF Night 704 or whatever.
You just have the commentary track of any of those with just Foxy doing the commentary and you're good. You're set.
Viral sensation.
Exactly, viral sensation, Foxy. But with Phone Guy, I think that worked that was interesting is Phone Guy barely understands what's going on.
Interesting. No, that's a great observation.
Because he is completely surprised by Glitch Trap showing up because he had nothing to do with Glitch Trap.
Yeah.
He had and that's one of the reveals that comes later, which I thought is a really good point of the writing. That was all the real William Afton's doing.
Yeah.
And so here's the fake Afton, the imposter Afton, going around doing this stuff, and suddenly he's confronted by this giant random rabbit animatronic that he's probably seen.
Yeah.
But why is it here?
Ordered it.
What is it doing? He ordered it, but what is it doing here?
Yeah, why is it alive? Why is it
and why is it making these threats? And it's like, and suddenly mask off, you're not William Afton.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
how does it know that? No one's ever said that to him.
How does it know that? Like, you can understand, like, it's a good moment too when I'm watching it later and going, okay, my confusion is also Afton's confusion in this.
Yeah.
Phone Guy's confusion.
Also, why the decision, okay, it's going off topic. Why the decision to cut off the hands?
Okay.
I know a lot of people were asking.
The biggest question that we saw, the most like WTF moment. Everyone, I was in the live stream with people watching that episode, getting to see their first reactions, and the delay as they processed what just happened, and the fact that they don't know why it happened. It was so juicy.
I think people were scared to even say because they didn't want to look stupid, because they were like, I assume everybody else knows what he's doing. The like fear of like looking like I'm the only one that doesn't get it.
Honestly, thank you for asking, Kaela. This is a good way for it to get confirmed on here.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the big questions. Why the hands?
The reason that he cuts off his hands is an attempt to fake his own death, which you see at the very, very end. In the news report after the building has burned down, exploded, whatever. What's left over is, a burnt body and hands inside fireproof gloves.
I think most people get that far, and they're like, "But was that the best idea?
Yeah.
Could he not do better?"
Well, they could ID the hands, the fingerprints on the hands as those of William Afton.
Yeah, William Afton is dead. Yeah,
I think in my headcanon, for me, it's like a weird convoluted thing, but it's this is a guy who has replaced his identity so many times, right? And what things he was able to put in that actually links him to this person or that person. I'm assuming somewhere he knew that his fingerprints were linked to William Afton, and that in order to kill William Afton, there needed to be fingerprint records instead of who knows what else.
Yeah.
And so that's my headcanon.
I think we can always just the get out of jail free card is he's a psycho.
He's a psycho.
There's a lot going on here, and his problem solving is not the best. But he is that deranged, and he is that open to self-harm if that gets him the ends to the what he's looking for.
And I also think this is a thing that we as humans do, where we look at what tools are available to us, what skills we have. And I like to imagine that he knows he can build himself some fake hands, as he does later. Yeah. And so he's like, hands, they're disposable.
Hands are disposable.
How did
he do it with no hands? I don't know.
So we talked about including a scene where he was watching a YouTube video. So you've chopped off your own hand. So here's what you're gonna. But first, a word from our, him just impatiently trying to skip like his elbow to like get to the part he needs. And everybody said that was too goofy and it was going to ruin the mood, so we didn't do it.
I think you took the high road. I like it personally, but also considering you were trying to keep it kind of couched in a nebulous 80s.
Yeah. And I do think that worked better for the product. It would have given us another cameo, though, to get another person playing a YouTuber explaining how to put your hands back on. I was like, that was going to be really funny.
I just want people to have the full picture here. I want you to know, if you've watched First Nights at Freddy's, this is a scene that would have replaced Cam Steady's cameo.
Right, with Baby going, where do I find...
where Baby goes like wild and hits him with a stapler and like kills him. One more scientist in the ravaging. And it would have replaced that. So, you know the tone of the scenes before and the scenes after. Just imagine in the middle of it, this, like, another WTF moment of watching a YouTube video trying to construct your own hands.
Yeah, it is goofy stuff.
So I remember years, and we already had this conversation yesterday, but I'm going to bring it back up again so you can say it on mic. Years ago, AJ had said, I want to crash a car into something. And then Glenn going, no, legal says no.
Legal says no.
And by legal, we mean you.
Yes.
And then...
or Mr. Moose.
And then it happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, AJ got his car crashed.
Yeah. Do you want to tell your...
I fought long and hard for it. I don't think they're the story made sense. And it was without feeling like we're stealing too much from ourselves, that idea of symmetry, the same way that Star Wars was able to, in episode 7, go, we're going to have kind of a second Death Star. Even within the first original 3 Star Wars movies, they're like, here's a second Death Star. Here's a third Death Star. That was kind of our idea of, can you do the same but bigger? So Matt Pat smashing through a wall, that was pretty cool. Back in the day. Yeah. How do you do a little bit bigger and better?
One take wonder, by the way.
Yes.
We actually, Matt's, was one take. We did the car crash with 2.
We did it twice.
We actually were able to reassemble that wall and get a second because I stopped the car too early on the first take. I needed to be a little bit more daring and not hit the brakes quite as soon so they'd really get through that wall better.
Yeah. And I want to clarify for all of the viewers at home, we do not recommend that you crash a car through a wall.
For legal purposes, you should not smash a car through anything.
We did several things that I think helped mitigate my concerns, because when it was originally pitched to me, it was pitched as my car, my character.
You playing the character.
Me playing the character. And I think the way I am not nearly as confident a driver as AJ is. I am just...
You have less experience,
I have way less experience. Yeah. So that was just a flat no. I was never going to be comfortable doing that stunt drive. Then it became, okay, well, what if AJ dresses as Baby?
Easy.
Selling point. Good. Yes,
easy.
Let's do that. And drives the car. And I was like, okay, this is beginning to be better. And then we did several test short drives on the floor,
safety, to see,
to make sure that we could do this.
Measure the distance of where does the car actually end if you hit the brakes.
And then once we had all of that in place, we cleared as many people as possible out of that room to make sure that there was never going to be any accidental bystanders. And I still sat in the house with 911 dialed on my phone, ready to hit call, just in case we had not predicted something, just in case a windshield broke. Or
can you imagine how fun it would be, though, to have emergency services show up with me, strapped in the car with it halfway through the house's wall, dressed as a clown girl? Be like, hey, sorry. I took a wrong turn. I just want to know what their faces would have been. I'm like, what happened here?
Neighbors passing by what the?
Yeah, the rubbernecking of going by our house. Be like, what?
I would sincerely hope someone came in and What are you, Harley Quinn? What's going on
I
here?
would really hope that would hit the local news. I think I need that like local news report of like, and then today in Palmdale,
I love
man
that
dressed as a robotic clown girl smashed a car through a house.
I can imagine you would have gotten that newspaper and just framed it on your wall.
It would have been like, when I get out of prison, this is going to make a great story.
I'm just
you would have gone to prison.
I would hope
I'm
not.
picturing this so much. The dress didn't actually fit. It didn't even zip up all the way in the back.
Why are you shaming me in front of everybody?
I used my real hair for Circus Baby, so in order to get him looking like Circus Baby, we cobbled together
Like mismatched like pigtail wig?
Yes,
Yeah.
it was a ponytail wig on one side turned sideways with like just a completely random other like clip.
I feel like something from Monica maybe made it in. Monica's hair
I
got
feel like-
attached to something
I
else.
feel like it was it was Carla from Kindergarten 2 and a pigtail from, I think you might be right. I think it might have been just Monica.
just Monica.
Or it was
Frankenstein
Mary
together.
Jane from 60s.
It was a mess. It
was
didn't look
terrible.
right.
Oh my
It was,
gosh.
and I'm just imagining that's what we're talking about, like emergency services
Yeah.
finding you. Unzipped, mismatched pigtails, full makeup, car crashed through the wall.
Yeah. Good time. We were having a good time, obviously. Can I circle back around? I just realized that, like, you and Casey, David, were never actually on set, even though you guys did that scene together.
Right.
Never.
You know, it breaks my heart because you guys are both such accomplished actors. You guys have the performing spirit of, like, embracing your character and living it. And we talked about, like, chewing the scenery as a phrase. That's exactly what you and he were doing this entire production. And it breaks my heart we didn't put you guys actually on set together at any point.
At some point, you've been in the same room as Casey.
Yeah, but what were we thinking? Why didn't we get you guys, like, actually together?
You mean even, like, as villains?
Even just enjoying, like, the fact that you guys were getting to control so many story points and stuff. But again, like, yeah, as actors, I love seeing you guys, like, work together. And I'm like, what a shame.
I'll forgive you, but you gotta do something for me.
Anything.
Okay, we're gonna do another Castlevania.
Wait, I take it back. Not anything.
Hold it. Let me put it out there. Casey is still Dracula.
It's gotta be.
Yes.
Richter Belmont.
Oh! You know, I'm gonna have to seriously consider that. Because that would be fun.
Simon died, or
yeah.
Poor Simon.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
he died of sudden cardiac arrest for eating wall chicken.
Yeah.
Eating raw wall chicken.
Yeah, he learned his lesson.
Ghost come and like give advice or something? Or
There's gotta be ways to revive him. We can make this happen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but I was just
Die,
thinking about
monster! You don't belong in this world. You know, I do it.
that. But yeah, that's one of the crimes that we've committed in all these Five Nights at Freddy's musicals. I don't know why we didn't get you and Casey together on one of these.
We have acted across from each other in other things though. I mean, technically,
Yeah.
Monkey Ball.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
Deep
right.
cut.
That's a deep one.
Oh, deep cut. But that was a good one.
Your hair was so grown out in that.
I will
too.
never forget Dr. Bad Boon.
What
a hero.
I will also never forget Dr. Badbone. He had more songs in that musical than the other characters.
Yes, he did.
He
Have
had
I
two
told
whole
you?
songs.
Have I told you that sometimes I just quote that movie and I ask Nate and Gwen when I come downstairs and I see them working, I go, "Enjoying your sunny day, monkeys."
he died.
It's just one of my, like, I've sent it as a meme before, just to them, like, "Enjoying your sunny day, monkeys."
I just love it.
Yeah, it's such a great question to ask people when you walk into a room.
Enjoying your sunny day, monkey.
It's so patronizing and malicious sounding.
That's wonderful.
It's like, clearly I am if I'm asking you, but I expect
yeah.
you're not.
So then we finally got and so all said and done, we finally got the first night at Freddy's, the
first
entire
night.
supercut,
Yeah.
and all the blood, sweat, and tears y'all poured into it.
Yeah, capped off.
Literally all the
Like
all
10
the blood
years.
and tears.
Yes,
All the blood
there were
tears.
quite a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And
we survived Five Nights at Freddy's. A few more than Five Nights at Freddy's.
I guess
even.
technically 6 nights.
There were a lot of
All
nights,
things.
really.
I'm going to ask the terrible question that everybody asks: is there ever going to be more?
I was waiting for that question. I was like,
Thank you,
I'm going
Kaela.
to ask it. I really because I know people would
The
Audience surrogate Kaela says.
crowd pleasing.
crowd, please.
Yeah, you speak for the people.
the safe answer is
I am the
what,
Kaela.
are you crazy? This wasn't enough for you?
No.
How could we go bigger?
I like that safe answer because it leaves the, like, it's very tactfully not saying no.
That's true.
That would be crazy.
And that said, though, I'm the kind of person who says, y'all, y'all worked so hard on this. Let it rest.
Yeah.
There's other things we can do.
I definitely think there is a strong case for it. Let it rest, especially because there are several people that we got to work on First Nights at Freddy's by saying, this is it. This is the last time.
Yeah.
We will not ask you for this again. We will let you go and live your life, never doing the Chica voice ever again. We
will
promise.
We will never darken your doorway asking you to play a singing bear.
That's right.
And I'm so thrilled. We got back literally everyone that we needed for First Nights at Freddy's. And it's so grateful for everyone that showed up for it, that reprised characters they hadn't played in years.
There were new people that said yes to it. Like the guest star list was really good, actually. And there were more that we expressed interest and just things didn't work out. But we had talked to DA Games at some point. Will, we had talked to JT Music about, and we almost had a cameo with them at some point. There were a number of people that didn't even end up in it that had still said yes at various stages. So huge.
And people
cast.
they went so far out of their way. Chasington traveled for us. DeHusta traveled for us. Matt Pat traveled for us. Nate Wants to Battle traveled for us.
Yeah.
Like tons of people put in so much time and effort on this, and we are so thrilled that they did.
Right.
I don't think I could demand any more of them.
And understandably so.
They paid the iron price.
And also, it's like you've done more videos than most people for that do musicals. Or
I was going to say, I think technically FNaF does not hold the record of the most videos on our channel yet. I think Pokemon still has it.
It's very close.
But it is very close.
But the puppets, we have to give credit where it's due. They went through so much more on the back half of their careers than even the front end of their careers, and they've held up very well given what we've asked, but we can't ask more of them, right?
Yeah.
They deserve retirement.
Can we just talk for a minute about Poor Springtrap? Because Poor Springtrap had
He's gone through the worst.
Off, then he got it sewed back on, and then he marinated in some hot chocolate Coca-Cola something or other.
Soy sauce was involved.
Soy sauce.
Ew.
Oh, he was a mess. And
Why do you do this, AJ?
Because I'm the real monster. That's
You
why.
choose the weirdest concoctions.
You need it, soupy.
Okay, in fairness, he didn't choose most of it. It was mostly me and Nate.
I just take the flack for it.
I just assume because of the gross milk.
The legal says no. Legal said yes, apparently, on that.
All of these things are a little bit of lack of pre-planning. Like, if we had just thought to buy milk, the milk would have been real milk.
Yeah.
If we had just thought to buy something that would look kind of grungy, it would have been fine. But instead, we were halfway moved out of that house, going through the kitchen, going, what is left in this kitchen that will look really gross on camera? Aha, hot chocolate mix, Coca-Cola, soy sauce. And I swear there was something else that was making it bubble. Like, more than the Coke. Because the Coke actually got watered down really fast.
Iced tea? There was iced tea in
Might
it.
have been iced
I think we
tea.
mixed some, or coffee.
Whatever it was.
Yeah.
It smelled lovely.
Oh, I can imagine.
And poor Springtrap. He was so sticky and weird.
He's getting more lifelike every time.
Poor guy.
And his eyeballs washed off.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we had to remark his eyeballs. Yeah, the pupils of his eyes were gone by the time we were done.
Poor Springtrap.
Yeah, he suffered. So it's time to let them go, I think. But that said, we still love everybody who worked on it. We still love everybody who enjoyed it. We love, the characters. So there is that part of my heart, kind of like Toy Story, where you're like, am I really ready to say goodbye? You want them to ride off in the sunset, but you also want to believe they're out there having another adventure. Mm-hmm. So can you have your cake and eat it too? I'm not sure. We're kind of learning as we go.
Yeah.
Well, and if you go by the timeline of the original series, yes, they did They did have more adventures after that. They got to go make video games.
That's true. They did. Very successful career, in fact. They even produced them under the name of the evil dirtbag with a chainsaw. Wild.
How nice of them.
Yeah.
He thought he was the only one stealing identities. Now the puppets are doing it too.
Well, I want to say from my end, thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this whole saga. This is I said it before to y'all when it came out. I left a comment. It's one of those comments that got majorly upvoted, where I just said, being a part of this series has been a highlight of my career as a performer, and it's something I will always look back on fondly. As getting to be involved in this with the people involved, with the just sheer level of talent involved, and getting to collaborate, be a collaborator was just is something I will always cherish. So,
well, for our parts, thank you for agreeing and lending your voice and your talent and your time and your hard work to making these characters come to life, because you made such an impact on audiences around the world over the last decade and probably the next decade or 2 or 3 decades. It's going to be wild when we're all like old and like, nursing homes and stuff. And people are like, I remember the FNaF musical. You were Foxy and you were rah, 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 rah. But this is the reality, is like you put your stamp on something that went out there in the universe and changed people's lives. So there's no going back. You've changed things forever.
It's true. The timeline is forever altered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for saying yes to that. And giving up so much to make it happen.
You didn't give up that much.
You gave up enough. We'll call it enough.
Well, I feel like I received more than I gave. So honestly,
that can't. We're all receiving a lot from the community and from the games, and it feels really good to, at the end of this 10-year span, to look and go, people still look back favorably and go, that aged well. I enjoyed it.
I think the craziest thing is when I'm at my day job, and sometimes, I don't know how it happens, some people find out that I've done this, even though my face is like never on camera. Any of this.
It's true.
Sometimes it gets out. Sometimes, it's through conversation. And then I will learn, I'll learn that there'll be young people come to me and say, I grew up with these. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's crazy, because I'm like, oh, you really are a literal child. But also, yeah, it's just nuts knowing that has reached as many people as it is as a whole. The entire series, whether the original 5 nights or the first nights, it's amazing, and it's such commendable work. And we all put so much into it, but you in particular, and I want to thank you for being a part of this podcast as well, and being willing to talk about it here on Undercooked Analysis. Oh,
we had a really good time. We were looking forward to it. I'm glad to celebrate this a little. And again, like, as much as like people, come to you and to us and say they were, fulfilled and rewarded by us putting in that time, I know I feel even more rewarded. Whatever they feel, I feel 10 times more fulfilled to have done this. So I'm the real winner, more than anybody else, I think. But thank you for having us on today to talk about it and to celebrate a little bit. I feel like we need like a cake or something.
Oh my gosh.
I should have gotten a cake.
We have ice cream.
We got ice cream. Ice cream will cut it. Will be okay.
Skip the cake, get the ice cream. Maybe you have a creepy rotten cupcake around here.
That would be even better. Disgusting cupcakes.
I think it'd be grotesque.
Creepy and grotesque.
Good evening, intrepid listeners. This is the Pasta Shade, the host of Midnight Marinara, and this podcast is part of CreativeHorror.com, a network of podcasts and creators working together to build a constructive community of horror fans. For more content like this, visit us at CreativeHorror.com.